Hi, I'm Conrad Petrich, and my project was recording legal documents for Southern Utah Title Company. So the core features that this project included were changing the database that already existed so that it can handle storing strings for these entry numbers that you see here instead of just doubles, which was a big problem, and that was a pretty easy fix. Because the county sometimes would send entry numbers that had letters or things that could not be converted to a double, and therefore we'd miss an entire entry when we were parsing the data that was sent back to us. So that was a pretty big problem. Also, being able to replicate the exact results was a big core feature of the past search that the employees have been using. And so when they're searching for a parcel or a county or something of the nature, the results needed to be the same, obviously. So also another core feature would need to be displaying the form up here and the results down below on a single page. That was actually a pretty big deal, and I had to make quite a few changes. The form up here was at least twice the size in the old application that was being used. And it was on a completely separate window, and so it wasn't even part of the same window. And then the results took up about the same amount of space, and so I had very limited real estate on the page in order to make it all fit. That did take some finagling and some work and some planning, and it's still going to change, but this is a state that can be worked with and can be used, and so I left it at this for the recording purposes, and it fulfills my core requirements. So a hope that I had was the ability to add the documents and entries to a chain. So when the employees do a search and they find documents and entries that are applicable to their search, they can mark it as part of their chain with these checkboxes that you see over here. But that sadly has not been implemented yet. That is coming very soon, and I hope to have been able to accomplish it during the project. And then a dream was able to perform multiple search types at once. And so of being limited to only one subdivision name, for example, I can add several subdivision names and search for all of them, or for several names here. And then it would be stored in a way that could be replicate, or you can go back and you can find the exact same search that used those names and not have to type all of the names in again. That is another thing that was actually added, was this history box right here. And so if I did do a past search, then I could come up here and I can select it, which is based on the file and by the employee. And so different employees would see different results here, and that greatly limits it so that it's not completely massive. Let's see, so if I select one of these past results here, it will populate these fields with the data that was from that past search. And that way I don't have to retype in all these different fields. I can just simply select it, and then I can perform the exact same search. The reason why this is useful is because if you do a search now and you find all the documents applicable, and then later there's a change to that property and there's another document added, and you do this search again and there's another document that happens to be there, you can select it and add it to the chain, and then you don't have to remember all the information that you entered here. So that's very, very handy. So each of these search fields here, you have the search type, you have the parcel, you have the dates that it's being recorded between by the county, you have the history, you have the county that you're searching within, and then these two fields are only applicable for live files, and so they're not necessary for the testing purpose. And the lower form below is specifically, all these are for the parcel search. If I was to go to a county, it's much more simple. The filter is either blank or limit it to tax liens and judgments. And then you can search by the name of the individuals that the property is tied to, whether it's the grantee, grantor, or the company it's being recorded for. So it's much more simple in explaining. So the table here displays the entry number, the date the document has been recorded, the tax ID, the type of document that it is, the grantee information, grantor information, the company it's recorded for, and the amount that is tied to the document. So if there's a lien or a fee or an amount that still needs to be charged or something of that nature. And then below, for each of these that you select, it populates these lower tables depending on the entry number. And so let's find a good one here. Yeah, there aren't very many good ones for this search. Sorry. So there's legal descriptions here. So if there was multiple legal descriptions, it would populate this whole table and you'd be able to search through them because some have several. The basic information for the entry. So this is the entry number itself, the book and the page, which it doesn't have, which is quite common for the newer records. And then the type is a deed of reconveyance, the date of it's recorded here, and any notes that are tied to the entry. This is the subdivision information. There could be several subdivisions that are tied to the entry. So there's a possibility of having several here, several section, township, and ranges, several grantees, several grantors. This one only has 3 grantors, only has 1 grantee. And then affiliated entries. And so this isn't the exact same entry or document, but it's something that's closely tied to the document or entry that you've selected above. And so that the searcher can go ahead and look at this particular file if they were to click on this. I'm not going to do it because it might have private or personal information. And then also this, you can do the same thing with the affiliated ones, and that's very, very helpful for the individuals that are searching, so they can look at the exact document that has been scanned in, and they can look at the exact verbiage and see if there's anything that is out of place or is the exact document that they want. So that is the basic functionality of this page. It's a pretty simple idea, but it took quite a long time to digest the existing code in order to replicate the results, and that's what I'll show you right now. Alright, so I wanted to explain some of this code real quick for the actual search. When it's passing in a hash or a map of values, that's all based on the form data. And so if you put in something for the name of the subdivision ID, it'd be passed in here in this criteria value here. And then it goes down through a list of options. So if you did insert something for the subdivision ID or the code, it would handle certain actions, and it would have to do several different queries to several different tables and in different databases, and do lots of joins and things like that to pull in all the records that are applicable to the search. And so the subdivision code and ID is actually the most complex section, so I won't go too much into that. Same with subdivision name. Some that are very simple are the names. So all I did is I actually created an array that I called results, and then I concatenated all these results from these different queries together, and then I eventually returned them to the user. In conclusion, was done in about 150 work hours, and not including self-study time, going through old code, and going over some of the core features that I accomplished all the core features of manipulating the database to store the string values for the entry numbers instead of the doubles. So that handled some of those missing cases where the county would send entry numbers that included characters other than digits. And so we could actually store those records now. Also, all the data is being displayed on a single page, including the form, which were separated before. And then also the results being returned from each query are the same as in the old system that was being used, so that we don't get mixed results, and so that people can use the exact same search histories that they've already done in the old system and the new system and return the same query values. So that's been my project. It's been fun, and thanks a lot.